Well, good morning as we're sitting here at LTV on this beautiful morning, Wednesday morning, February 5th, year 2025, here with the Hello Notion. My name is Haim Mizrahi, continuing with the tradition of public access and the tradition of the Hello Notion that's been on the air since 1980. Of course, not to fail to mention the contribution by Fraser Dougherty, Francis Ann, and of course the likes of you out there to make it your business to enhance and fortify the concept of public access. And here with us this morning, uh, Antoinette. First of all, I want to really thank you for being here. I like that spur of a moment notion. And for you out there, Antoinette is a force to be reckoned with the soul of an artist, as a actually pretty one of the most efficient individuals I know. Even though I don't know her well enough at all, and we're going to get to know her, she's a part of LTV, and she's just a wonderful person, and we were happy to have you here, and you make things happen,
Oh,
don't you?
well, thank you.
It's in a very nonchalant way, but
Mm.
very very professional, very thoroughly. So, I want to talk a little bit about that kind of artistic effort that's taking place, and
Hmm.
about a little bit about you, of course.
Okay. I'd love to share. I don't know where to begin exactly. To begin at the beginning or
We're having a conversation as we usually do.
hmm.
So, as you feel, but I, maybe I may add that and I want to share that with you, that I instantly, when I saw you, I realized that this is a person that is open, that you can converse with, that you can be enlightened in surprising ways.
Hmm.
A person you can have an intelligent conversation with, and
Oh.
so much more. So, and that's the kind of thing I try to kind of give the people out there, this sense of civility and profoundness,
Hmm.
and meaning, something that's meaningful,
Hmm.
and it's happening all within the kind of the umbrella of public access.
Hmm.
So I want to share these things with you and your reservations. But first, tell me a few things about yourself in a down to earth sense.
Sure. I mean, in the most basic sense, I'm born and raised New Yorker. Um, I spent most of my adolescence as a full-time resident out east here. I lived in East Hampton Village for a long time, and then East Quogue. I went to the local schools here, but the Catholic system, I went to Our Lady of the Hamptons in Southampton, and then on to Mercy. So I spent a lot of my formative years here, and it was such a lovely way to grow up in such a lovely childhood. This was the 80s and the 90s. And, it was a much quieter time here in a lot of ways. But um, one of the questions I always got asked when I went off to college and to the city later in life was, what was it like to grow up in the Hamptons? Everyone thinks
Yeah,
that everyone who lives here is, part
I
of
think
that.
it's temporary. No one lives there or something.
Right. So, it's like to live there full time. And I said, I think that we are the luckiest people that I know, because we get to enjoy something all year round that a lot of people pay a lot of money just to enjoy in the summer. And that there's such a sense of community, and that you didn't and don't need every luxury in the world to enjoy the Hamptons in its purest form. We were just speaking before the interview about the beaches in the wintertime, and they sort of become your own because you could be the only soul on them, but they're the most gorgeous beaches in the world.
Yeah,
And that sense of having everything anyone could want, and it not have to be about the money, was actually, I think, really profound to me at a young age. That um, yeah, just that difference, because locals and people who live here year round are we're just that community.
yeah. And it's also the relationship between the East End and New York City. I remember when I first arrived there. Of course, I had an agenda. I'm a musician, and so now I said, "Oh my God, now I can go and check out all the great musicians that I was like, listening to and imagining maybe one day I can see them all
Mm.
the way from Lincoln Center to Village Vanguard and a million things.
Mm.
So that it, too good to be true reality was like what I encountered when I first arrived here. So
Mm-hmm.
I can really relate to what you're saying. But I think that kind of tension and mystery that's within that proximity to the city, and
Mm-hmm.
in the city proximity to the Hamptons,
Mm-hmm.
is so uh, opposite to one another, yet it just really what makes it what it is. That what makes it as special as it is, actually.
Yes, we get
Isn't it
that.
funny?
Yes, the culture travels with the people that come and visit, and it brings such diversity and just art and movies and all of those things that light up the city comes out here as well, and
Yeah.
but in a relaxed form.
Yes. But also, think about the level of intensity just radiating from the fact that in the East End there's so much heritage.
Hmm.
There's so many, especially the special movements.
Hmm.
Uh, although if you say impressionism or abstract expressionism, or all of these new kind of configurations of
Hmm.
what art is all about, what art should be in relationship to tradition, and then the modernistic aspect kicking in. Everything is happening here.
Hmm.
Like as we go to the deli and whatever, it's every corner has a story. So um, you also get to see that people have high tolerance for poetry.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? That they
Yes.
think it's a good idea, to write a poem,
Hmm.
to read a poem, or to be somewhere where someone recites a poem and you're enjoying it and appreciating it. That's something that we shouldn't take for granted.
No, not at all. I mean, it's something to be celebrated consistently. I think you definitely can pour yourself into that, and it can pour back into you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And also, when I came from Israel, I was like in between Paris and Israel, uh, and everything's were going well for me, but I always wanted to see um, if I can challenge myself, for example, to do coast to coast. For me, it was a dream. I come to America. I'm just going to go from New York to California and back, and
Hmm. And
I
see
didn't
it
think there
all.
was anything better than that in the entire world.
Yes.
And any which way you will do it,
Hmm.
any which way it will turn out to be, it will be absolutely great. I
Yes.
didn't end up doing it. I went coast to coast, but not driving as I wished.
Mm.
But the fact that it's available, the fact that you can feel valued, even if you're not a prodigy or
Hmm.
some super talent,
Hmm.
So I think that's what we experience every day here, knowingly and unknowingly,
Hmm.
and through public access. Uh, you're getting the taste of it now.
Yeah, I mean, I love the forum. I'm definitely interested in pulling in as many people as I can that are interested to participate and share what they have to offer, and become more a part of the community and give more of the community access to what their gifts are. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, maybe you should give them a little kind of summary of what you mean, what you're talking about. Just
Mhm.
not so sure people know so much about it.
Yeah, Zach and I and some of the team are working on sort of like a before we do our shows in Studio 3, we're putting together a promo video
Hmm.
that's going to show the audiences as they come in before every show little snippets of everything that we do here.
Hmm.
So we're hopefully going to be exposing more people to that. People
Yeah,
who come just for an event may not know exactly what goes behind these walls or behind Studio One walls. So we're going to sort of give them a glimpse into that as a way to sort of bring people in.
yeah, that's nice. So what is it that you think can serve as an encouragement for people out there to come to LTV and to eventually really get involved?
Well, one, I think it's a great way to just be among your community. It's a way to foster relationships, to network, and to give back. So I think it's, a win-win-win for anybody. I don't see a real downside to it. If you have something that you want to talk about politically, something on a local level, this is definitely a forum to do it. If you are interested in helping people live a healthier lifestyle, this is a great place to come and discuss that. If you're interested in having your art on display, we're a place for that. we really have a place for everything, and it just immerses you more into the community that you're in.
Yeah, yeah. And uh, that injection of vitality, for lack of a better word, um, is a wake up call. Also, every time we think, and it's like it's funny that I used to be more involved with politics, and now I'm completely on the other end. For years, I just have zero tolerance for that, because having kids the way I do, it's just like I think, no way, I'm
There's
going
no
to
time
talk
to
about
think
this
about it.
guy, that.
Yeah.
It's like this is taking from me that I'm going to have to replenish it then, and it might not work, and then I'm going to, so I'm kind of more like being afraid to be caught emotionally malnourished.
Hmm. Which is very possible.
You know what I mean?
Yes, very
It's very
draining.
difficult to get out of it.
Yes.
Very easy to get into it. Very difficult to get out of it.
Yes, very true. It's can definitely take a lot of your energy away.
Yeah. And you know what? The other day I couldn't help myself. I never, I can read people's posts. I mean, for the most part, they're very predictable, don't you think? Like, the right is the right, the left is the left. It's so defined, but just kind of anticipated and predictable, and that's what makes it really sad. That
Yeah, I think people
there's no change. There's no like hope for a breakthrough.
people debate, but they don't have conversation.
Yeah,
And I think that is lacking in today's political climate.
that's well put. Yeah,
Yeah, because you just picked a side, and that's fine, but people have to be able to compromise in the world in one way, shape, or form.
what kind of conversation do you think you see it that it can be?
Well, I think that anytime, if you have to stay open, one, you have to listen. You can't just sit and wait to respond. I think that's a really important characteristic in anybody as a human being, politically or not, that you have to be able to really hear what somebody's saying before you respond. I think people have a tendency to hear the first sound bits, come up with their retort, and just sort of spit it out at times. And they're not
Yeah.
really listening to that person's perspective.
Yes. Yeah, and it's interesting that I now I realize that I wanted to do many things in many ways, and and react in many ways about many things, and I ended up not doing it really,
Mhm.
and I hated that I didn't. Not that I had to be obsessed with it, but I felt like after the fact that I should have kind of given myself a little opening to just say like, um ho- to let it out, to especially when you think because there's a disappointment kind of thing. Like, there's some people that I know to be very intelligent and very
Mhm.
sensitive and quality individuals. The other day, one of them posted something about Trump and all this. And listen, I'm not Trump or not anybody else. I'm just like, I looked at the post and I said, this is so disappointing.
Mm.
The person used on Facebook 3 words: mentally ill,
Mhm.
moron, and um, what was this trio? It was a trio. It's like um, um, another one that's not beautiful anyway.
Yeah.
So
Orange.
so yeah, so putz or something,
Yeah.
whatever. Uh, mentally ill, moron, and a loser. Yeah, loser.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of thinking now that I watch Madame Secretary.
Mhm.
I don't know if you watch the show on Netflix. It's a good
No,
show.
and I
Oh,
haven't.
I
No.
did for a while. So I have an idea of the White House. I'm thinking like, whoever that person is that's in the White House is under so much, technically speaking, pressure.
Mhm.
He's constantly in touch with what's happening internationally, and it's just like there's so much involving that one cannot even think about the extent of it,
Mhm.
and that everything that we know as our livelihood depends on their kind of technical decisions
Mhm.
before long before politics kicks in. That we should really, each one of uh, of the individuals that make this country the way it is, should think about and pray for the well-being of the immediate government that runs this country,
Mhm.
however they do. But technically speaking, if you don't feel humble with that kind of potential of and how fragile the situation is, you might think twice before you start calling your president a moron or something like that. It's like so
Mm-hmm.
disrespectful. So now it's people that you know. So I couldn't help myself that post, and I reacted on the spot, and I said, I'm sick and tired of this BS.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine that someone would call you a mentally ill moron and a loser because he thinks that you're wrong about something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just think about how you're going to sit and feel about someone calling you like this. And the first thing that should come to your mind is, why would he want to go so far with these descriptions and profanities? Why?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, keep the monologue, dialogue intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
Hit me with some common sense that I can be provoked and say, no matter what I think or how I feel, you manage to make me pause and think intelligently. And
Mm-hmm.
you're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wrote something in Hebrew for it, and I said, Google.
Mm-hmm.
They say, if you have some kind of deficiency, if you see some deficiency in the others, you will only be able to call it through your own deficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was kind of trying to tell her. But then I had question marks. Should I have done it? Should I have not? But it felt like it just a crime not to cater to that which bothers you and try and be civil and intelligent at the same time. Why should it be so difficult?
I think it's just a matter of the it's become emotional for a lot of people. It's gone beyond an intellectual or civil conversation. They've internalized it into a place of anger. People are angry. People are angry on both sides. And ultimately, though, I think anyone knows who's fought with a spouse or a loved one that when you have any conflict that involves anger, one-sided or both-sided, you don't get much accomplished from that. And a civil conversation is usually the best form to get something done. But it's very hard if someone's angry and they want to yell and they want to scream. And, you know, one good thing is they have a right to do so. They have a right to do so on public access. They have a right to do so on the internet. Um, it's not something that really would have occurred when we were younger because that was just wasn't the way. It was always, a president or a politician was always revered and you wouldn't speak of them that way. And things have changed, I think, with the access people have to voice their opinions. Um, you used to have to be protesting in the streets, and now they protest on their Facebook pages. Um, but I don't think it's useful in a lot of ways. But I understand it.
Yeah. Yeah, but really, we can actually take this and talk about how it influences the immediate eh, results of artists as they engage in their medium,
Hmm.
and how the society that depends on it, because that's what keeps common sense, logic, uh, a secured center that the society can keep on going,
Hmm.
and that it will take almost something that is borders the impossible to derail that.
Hmm.
But if we take it for granted and let certain aspects of the human behavior the that affect the process of that, if even an individual decides to be a hands-on creator, artist, so to speak, that he should know immediately what it is that he needs, or quickly enough,
Hmm.
because otherwise he goes on empty. He thinks he creates, but nothing is being added.
Hmm.
So we should be very wary that when you see someone, it's almost like you go to an art show and you want to critic someone's art, and you say, "So what do you think?" I say, "I think it really stinks, man." Like that's just but this whatever,
Hmm.
So there won't be one artist in the world that will say, "Oh, thank you, I really appreciate that."
Hmm.
Just like if you were to say, "Listen, you know what? Maybe you should have kind of spent a little more time in researching, or maybe you should focus more on the infrastructure of that painting, and
Hmm.
because it's beautiful, and it can be so much more beautiful."
Hmm.
Then wouldn't the painter say, "Thank you,
Hmm.
you gave me some food for thought."
I mean, potentially, if they're
Okay.
not super
Or
sensitive.
yeah, or even saying this is out of this is more than unreal. I mean, that would be also, what
Hmm.
are you talking about?
Well, I think it's subjective. That's one of my favorite things about art is my favorite thing about art is that art can't be wrong. It can be, people can think it's good, people can think it's bad. That's subjective, but it can't be wrong. And I think that's my absolute favorite thing of it. So whether or not an artist receptively receives feedback like that, whether they decide to use it or not to use it, neither is wrong. You know, both are right. It's the way they choose to express themselves in their work.
Yeah,
So I just think that's such a beautiful thing because there's so many things in this world that are more finite. If you get, you know, 2 + 2 = 4, if you say it equals 5, you're wrong.
yeah.
And, you know, and that doesn't occur in that realm. So that's one of my favorite parts of it.
Yeah, well, it won't be wrong if you say I think it's 5, but
Correct. It's subjective. It's subjective, and
and,
that's the beauty of it. One
and
person can see it and say like, "Oh my God, that's a you know, I would never hang that in my house," and then someone else is paying 5 million for it. I mean, you
yes,
really,
yeah. But I noticed that you are the one who's genuinely uh, uh, projecting that you enjoy the process.
mm-hmm,
Um, I don't know. I mean, you're an artist also yourself, so
mm-hmm,
it's not. And also how you speak for others, like your friend with her sculptures and all this. There
mm-hmm,
was something very meaningful yet very kind of down to earth, and we don't see that often. But
mm-hmm,
I see that you really enjoy the process,
mm-hmm,
and therefore you're able to do your job in a very interesting, meaningful way.
mm-hmm. I like to accomplish things. Um, I really enjoy the feeling of finishing a project or creating something new, something that's beneficial, something that serves a community as a whole, um, or just putting a piece of energy into the world that's positive. I just thoroughly enjoy it. I don't know if it's something that I was taught. I'm pretty sure I've just sort of always been that way. Maybe my Scandinavian side of me.
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
Good. I mean, if you made Dan well and satisfied and happy with your work,
Mhm.
that counts for a lot. It,
Yes.
the patience and regard, and you need to kind of also respect people to
Yes.
find that golden path
Yes. And I've
and
that,
learn from them also.
yes, I learned so much from him. I recently was so excited. I had a I had a sketch that I had done with him when he was tutoring me when I was about 8 years old. We had gone to the Morton Preserve, and it was my childhood art sketchbook. So I had found it. I was missing, and it was with stuff in storage, and I wasn't sure it was going to make it, and it made it, and I have it. I'm so happy that that's the case. And so I was just recently flipping through it the other day, and it's you see in the beginning it's childlike drawings, cartoon figures, and things like that, and then you get to the page where it was my first lesson as an artist in realism, and we were sitting and he's saying when you draw this leaf, don't draw it like you think you see it, draw it as it actually is. And so I have this one sketch in a book of childlike silliness, and then I'm like, I turn to this page and I'm like, wow, it's some of the best work I've ever done to date.
Yes.
And it's just this beautiful black and white sketch, and you see the change so vividly from page to page in a child's eyes of opening to the world and to how to create art in a different way and how to really um, to see and not just to look.
Yes. And in seeking knowledge and experience, and is something that is essential in the process of creating eventually something meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I started, I remember with the drip and splatter. It was very early in 96, 97, and actually Studio 3. Fraser Dougherty allowed me to use Studio 3 for free. He said, "Oh, you know what?
Oh,
I heard you're doing large scale and all this. Hey, bring the stuff and indulge and knock yourself out." And then we had the balcony. This big wall here was an open balcony to the second floor.
Oh, cool.
So there were windows and just open space.
Like a big loft. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I dropped like 4 by 14, 4 canvases down.
Yeah.
And then I took the scaffold and I did it 12 by 17 and kind of tacked.
Oh, that's
And then
so
that big
fun.
wall above the garage doors, I did like a 9 by 16.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember that, and I knew very little about Jackson Pollock, which was a blessing, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I knew the name, but I was ignorant as to what it really meant.
Mm-hmm.
So then when people came to Studio 3, it was like they kept on saying Jackson Pollock's name.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, should I be like flattered or,
yeah.
or
What?
insulted?
Yeah.
It's like, what's going on in all this?
Mhm.
So some people were more ridiculous because they were referring in details to about things that I didn't really.
Mhm.
They thought if he's creating this, he knows everything about Jackson Pollock,
Mhm.
and they were wrong.
Yeah.
It's like I kept on saying, yeah, of course, and this or whatever.
Yeah.
And then after the show, I went to examine the extent of this guy. Who's this guy? And I was like, oh, I'm doomed. What? He did that before?
Yeah.
But then I did a second show that Fraser had this building, these Hampton Studios were already in the next door building.
Mm-hmm.
Fraser Doherty built this building next door to LTV in order to have all these performances and concerts there, so it will support LTV.
Oh, I didn't know.
But it didn't work eventually like this. So he told me, this is 30,000 square foot. You want to take the space for a couple of weeks? Knock yourself out.
Cool.
I brought a crew and we did all this and we did large scale. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It was also 90% drip and splatter.
Mm-hmm.
And then Norman Mercer approached me, a really very well-known artist, and then he was 90, I think, and he whispered in my ear, "You put Jackson Pollock to shame." And I'm like looking at him, and I didn't make much of it. Then later on, I decided to give myself a break. I said it's too close for comfort. This was didn't want to be involved with the question, what am I doing or not doing?
Mm-hmm.
Until that point, I created a lot of splatter and drip. I said, I'm not doing it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So in the 3 years or 4 years that I stopped doing it, I got more information and more information. And I kept on looking into what I already created with a different eye. And then I was remembering what Norman Mercer told me.
Mm-hmm.
And Ernst Luckert, the founder of the Play Art Museum in Berlin, was a very good friend of mine. Came to my studio and he said, if Jackson Pollock was alive now, he would be a guest here every morning, would smoke joints with you and this and admire this piece that I see here, like would knock him out. So I had the privilege to want to be thorough enough to understand how we can find a way to do and cross the taboos and still create in the spirits of what those who supposedly brought it to life initiated. How to feel good about it. How not to deprive ourselves from venturing into these territories. And I succeeded. And but it will take a lifetime. By the time I'll be ready, really, I'm not going to be amongst the living. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think we got to find a way to introduce the new generation into the, hey, don't dwell too much.
So what?
Don't dwell too much. Don't take things too seriously. Be serious about not taking all this seriously.
It's a hard thing to teach.
Yeah.
It's like sort of comes with.
You can only say that and hope that that it registers in their minds.
Yes, because I mean, especially when you're young, you're I think maybe it's partially naive, but you're passionate in a different way. You have your whole life ahead of you. Anything is possible. I mean, and that's the case for me now in my 40s, but it's a different enthusiasm. It's I have more life experience. I understand a little bit more about how things happen, why they happen, all those things. I have more knowledge. I've learned to understand, and so it's it's always hard to try to steer a young person into a direction that may be beneficial for them, but they might see it as completely the opposite, and they just want to pick up their sword and rage. And I think that's a part of all of us in our youth that we've had, and we just sort of mold into more understanding people as we get older, potentially.
Yeah, we need more kind of evident authority, more highlighted authority.
Mhm.
I mean, speaking of the world of art and
Mhm.
creation, we need establishments that operate within reason, in addition to deep knowledge,
Mhm.
because deep knowledge in itself is just gonna do the wrong thing for us.
Mhm.
We really need to give that crash course to teachers first,
Mhm.
and
I think there's just such a lost art to teachers. You see so many burned out. As you know, um I was an art and communications major in college, and almost for some reason all of my other friends were English majors. And they're always in the library, poor things. And and I have to watch a film, I have to
yes,
do an acrylic
I
painting,
love
like,
it.
yeah, I was totally different world. But and the majority of them went into teaching, and this is 20 years later, 20 something years later, and a lot of them are the majority of them are burnt out and moved on to sort of supplementary careers. And um they didn't really enjoy, I think, their teaching careers as much as they were hopeful that they would. And I think that's very sad. And I love all these sort of alternative schools. We have a lot of them out here, that are private, but they bring in so much more art and culture, and there's less red stamps on things that they need approval for. And it can sort of just be a more open learning experience. And I think that really helps keep those teachers more engaged and um, enjoying what they do. But I think that's a big part of it, where you want your teachers to feel like they're thriving, and their every day is a positive impact, and they're not worried necessarily about status quos and things like that.
Yes, but also show them the way to enter into the forbidden zone in an effortless fashion, kind of thing.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't want people to misunderstand my use of words saying as like the forbidden
Yeah.
gateway or something. But um, yeah, I can tell you that the boarding school I went to was um, some kind of the ultimate openness, and then it's the on the other hand the ultimate rigidness.
Mm.
Uh, but I remember it's just one little tiny encounter. I used to the um, uh, the Hebrew teacher that we had. She was an author. She knew everything about everything, and poetry was very important for her.
Mm.
So I used to walk her 5 minute walk from the classroom on Wednesdays all the way to the gate of the boarding school and
Mm.
escort her, and we talk. And she always told me, "You will." I mean, I when because she knew me well. I mean, I
Mm.
was 11th grade,
Mm.
and she said, "I have no doubt that you're going to value poetry when you grow, and
Mm.
I just want to emphasize to you that there's nothing more important than poetry."
Mm.
And she kept on going about that
Mm.
and her vision and this and that, and I'm like, this is the person that I value the most. She was the most important in my life
Mm.
then. So I kept on reminding myself I need to listen to every word, every letter, every syllable that comes
Mm.
out of her mouth.
Mm.
And years later, I came to visit,
Mm.
and I said, "I have an aphorism for you
Mm.
that I wrote. That I always thought, oh my God, one day I want to give it to you.
Mm.
Not all the poetry that I wrote, just one aphorism."
Mm.
And the aphorism went. That's a translation from Hebrew. That there is a long line that stretches, and that long line produces dust behind it.
Mm.
But at the end of that line, there's a whole herd of people that's holding the cape of the line in front of him. And how terrible is it for those who hold the tail of that cape?
Holding somebody
But
back.
that's
Yeah.
in yes, but that's in 3 sentences.
Very
And
wise.
she
Yeah.
said, she said to me, "That's too good not to be on my refrigerator."
That's a daily one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what she did. She wrote it like a post-it and she put it on my refrigerator. Now, this act itself is more exuberant than the liberation of the end of the Second World War for me.
Mhm.
It was just some kind of the, the moment itself sees fit to release a spark that will be noticeable and evident by everyone.
Mm.
That's how a no-brainer it was for
Mhm.
me to me. But can we look at it into the eyes of the young generation and say, listen, writing your poetry is important. You better believe it.
Yeah.
Now get to it.
Yeah.
Write a poem right away. Like, and we'll deal with it later about good or bad. Or
I think what's touching on me with what you're saying is the certain mentors that we have in our life, and they come to you in different ways and shapes and forms over time, um, and it's not quite the same. But I worked in a deli when I was in high school in East Quogue, and it was run by a husband and wife, but the wife was the main operations, and we were slammed one Sunday morning, and all the other staff had gone to get some supplies, so it was slow, and then all of a sudden there's 100 people in there. They're all hungover and they all want egg sandwiches, and they all want 10 egg sandwiches, and it's crowded, and people are starting to get cranky and rude. And I was maybe 15, and she's in the kitchen and she's cooking on the grill, flipping things, trying to make it all happen. And I'm running around, I'm literally sweating. So she pulls me into the back. Just one of those things you never forget. And she goes, listen, wipe off your brow, take a deep breath, go out there and handle the situation. She's like, you know what to do. You're a competent girl. Like, but don't ever let them see you sweat. And so, there I was at 15. I took my deep breath. I mean, that's part of what you know of me now. I was born that day, and I walked outside and I said, everybody who hasn't ordered, step to the left. Everyone who's ordered, step to the right. Now I'm going to ring up the people that have ordered one by one. Then I'll get to everyone who hasn't ordered. I was like, enough's enough now, you know. And that was a great day for me. And it was, it wasn't art, but it was just a great mentor lesson from another strong woman, a business owner, and someone who just said, don't let the world pull your cape. You got to get out there and do what you got to do.
yes, yes. But also, we need authority itself
Mhm.
breaking the news to those who seek immediate and direct engagement with this.
Mhm.
To say the only difference between the person who took a toilet and put it in the center of MoMA or wherever,
Mhm.
and it was already a huge achievement just by being there.
Mhm.
The only difference between this person that did that and all the rest who didn't is what?
They're the ones who did it. They just made it happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Now, and the second most important would be like this is a second level of the same question.
Mhm.
So that means
Well, they had the confidence
so
to do
let's
it.
just say that so you're saying that anyone who will just decide and do it, it will be equal to that. Probably not,
No.
because then you have to go into the nitty gritty of it, like, and ask yourself, well, why is it worth? What's the message? What's the meaning? Now you start going into,
Mhm.
and then you have to sort through things and say, well, what is it that's I really want to get out of it? One thing.
Mhm.
You choose it, and that's it.
Mhm.
But do you think that the establishment will dare oversimplify the situation to this extent, even though even though they're convinced that it actually will work and all this, are they afraid to lose their authority? their official authority kind of thing, that they would have to be equal suddenly?
Well,
Because
but there,
anyone can do anything.
yeah, I think no, I think there different levels of um a lot of people are fearful of what people think of them. I think that plays a big part of it, and I think they're also there's like a cancel culture too that happens nowadays where if you do put yourself out on the line and it's deemed to be inappropriate, that you sort of that's it, that's the one chance you had at it, and then you're sort of done for. And that might make people fearful to step forward and to do those things, but I think ultimately the people that are meant to will, because I don't think you can really stop somebody from creating something that's meant to be created.
Well, if the Roma accepts your banana to be Velcro to the wall
Hmm.
and really declare to the world that whatever it declares, just like any with any other piece of art, but maybe more substantial, like a beautiful painting or something, then they tell you that they lose their authority to ever criticize what you're doing, and
Mm.
then they will lose all the point of reference that upon which they made the decisions in the future, in the past, and they will not have the moral right to deny you're participating in what's happening in the to be one of the artists and to have and to gain entry and to gain access to it. They will shoot themselves in the foot, and they will open a can. They did already a
Mm.
can of worms by allowing that to happen. But nobody ever called them on it. That means if
Mm.
you say that a banana on the wall with Velcro is acceptable,
Mm.
and this will be for the 100 million reasons that 100 million people gave
Mm.
or not, yeah.
Mm.
But the problem is they will allow you access, but you cannot come with a banana and say I want to put a banana too.
Mm.
You have to come maybe with an apple, but then you cannot come with an apple because it's fruits, and fruits has been, so now you have to be genuine.
Mm.
What kind of something ridiculous you have
You,
to
you have
can
to
come
up
up
you
with?
have to up the game, yeah.
Yes, and then you realize that actually art resides there
Mm.
in your difficulty to sort through what you just thought a minute ago that is a no-brainer and easy,
Mm.
and I got it, and suddenly you didn't.
Right. And I think that's what, where the acceptance of it comes from, is because it makes you question, it makes you ask, it makes you think, is this art? Is it not art? Is it good art? Is it bad art? And then that you can ask that of any piece of artwork, quite honestly. I mean, some can just be more visually stunning than others. I don't know. I don't personally know how I feel about the banana with Velcro, to be honest with you. I don't know if I mean, I know that that's an oddity. I wonder if it's gonna rot. Like, there's there's certain things like, did they dip it in wax first? I mean, I'm curious about things like that, but
Maybe it's not a real banana, it can be also plastic or
yeah.
whatever, or clay or whatever.
Does it make it more art if it's not a real banana, but it was a clay molded banana? Does that make it more art?
Yeah, but maybe it's so well done that you will never know that it's not a real banana
Right.
unless you buy it.
Unless you try to bite it.
Yeah,
But then you
I
gotta
know.
buy it first.
Buy it first, yes.
Yeah.
Or you'll be biting
Yeah.
dry bread in jail.
Yeah. We're washing a lot of Moma's dishes for a
Oh
long
my God,
time.
this is. But but I think they shot themselves in the foot
Mhm.
because they just opened up the scene to um, common sense. You can't argue with common sense, really. I mean, you
Mhm.
can, but it gets you nowhere. So that means when they say that, then I can come and say, well, uh, maybe from now on it should only be gestures,
Mhm.
not real things that we can see or hear, but not one or two that we already experimented and accepted
Mhm.
almost throughout.
Mhm.
So might as well just come, and we don't need curators anymore
Mhm.
because it will be the void curates itself.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah, no,
so how are you going to you leave no room for argument, but room for plenty of speculations.
yeah, and I think that the speculations is sort of what they go for, because it's definitely a great marketing piece. Here we are still discussing it, right? People have read about it, know about it. It's sort of in almost, I would think, sort of penetrated the internet beyond people that look at art and MoMA. So I think people have seen that banana and thought, in a crazy news story, and sort of was like, wow, but were exposed to something in the art world that they may not have been otherwise. I mean, marketing wise, it was an interesting, um, noteworthy news story sort of blip. And if that's what also they might be trying to accomplish with that as well, just, and it was an interesting soundbite.
Yeah. I did one solo art show of mine that I had all the pictures crooked.
Mm-hmm. On purpose.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But not overemphasized, just crooked,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just a charade of uh, your paintings are not balanced. And
Yeah.
I see some
And everyone
people
probably was
try,
like whispering to
and
you.
people do themselves.
Yeah.
They correct it,
Yeah.
and I say, "Do you mind not touching it?"
Yeah.
I never anticipated that end of it,
Mm-hmm.
that it will be so massively addressed.
Mm-hmm.
That means I thought more people will get it.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm actually, they
Doing
will
this on
take one look and
purpose.
say, okay, this is not one, everything is.
Yeah. Either
No,
that.
I think a few of them were just to spite and to say, oh, wait, but there's only 5 and 37 are crooked.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And imagine all the people who may have thought it and didn't say it.
and then said, or maybe some people thought it's absolutely brilliant beyond and they don't want to come and make me feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, there is, okay, that kind of feeling I can accept, human feelings,
Mm-hmm.
envy or whatever. Who does he think he is,
Mm-hmm.
When I did my styles, whatever, I did pointism for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and I was pointism was my only friend that taught me that I cannot be messed with. I used to take a 4 by 8 feet and be on my knees for hours on end,
Mm-hmm.
losing myself and finding myself constantly dozens and dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of times,
Mm-hmm.
but still nevertheless accomplishing composition knowingly and unknowingly, on top of knowingly, underneath unknowingly,
Mm-hmm.
but still nevertheless keeping a straight face through it, and just proving to myself a million different things at the same engagement. So I conditioned myself to a point where no matter who comes saying what,
Mm-hmm.
it would mean like the peel of garlic
Mm-hmm.
to me. And guess what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Magic. A few people commented and all this, but most of them quickly enough looked at the pieces and say, "What the friggin' heck?" So now the conversation shifted into, how did you how were you capable of doing it?
Mm-hmm.
So many dots. So
Mm-hmm.
now we're talking about almost like kids.
Mm-hmm.
Kids will get it quicker than adults
Mm-hmm.
because they will know what it means to go dot 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 dot.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're shifting the conversation and say, okay, I know you want to say pointism. We saw it, we've been there, we know you're definitely not close to the greatest. Never mind that I don't aim to be
Mm-hmm.
or don't have any desire to be, but that I lost the hope that I will ever have a decent discussion about that.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're going to a territory where we're speaking, that the real collectors, they measure a piece by whether they can do it themselves or not, kind of thing. And that's like one of my mentors told me.
Mm-hmm.
I always know if it's a great piece because I know that I cannot do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the pieces I might be able to.
Mm-hmm.
So you gain appreciation like this. So I want the discussion to remain there and say, okay, take another look, because after you take another look, there will be no room for discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the truth start kicking in, I think. So
Mm.
so artists or potential artists should be informed about the possibility to be a participant in this reality of truth that spells power.
Yeah.
Sit and do those downs. Keep focus layers upon layers upon layers. And at some point, just say, I've had enough and show it to us.
Yeah.
Show us 40 of these.
Yes.
And then we will promise you, we don't have to promise you, we will keep quiet
Mm-hmm.
in the process of observation.
Mm.
Because there just would be no other way to be able to measure what you did. But they need to be taught. But it's only one lesson, really. It's not a repetitious lesson. It's one lesson.
Mm.
When you deliver it appropriately, that's it. You're
Mm-hmm.
in their lives.
Yeah. And I'm through listening, I'm thinking of my own sort of methodology. And one of the things that I always thought was so interesting is that when you talk about repetition in art and creating a body of work that way, that it usually will, you'll get so tired of doing it the same way, all of a sudden something different can spark from it too, which can be really wonderful, I think, and take you into another direction. Like once you've completed that and you sort of evolve as you go, which I think is a wonderful part of that process also.
Yeah. But then again, the problem is that it's too good to be true to think that we can just by desiring for certain things to happen that it will, you
Well,
have to
I
go through
disagree.
you just take one individual at a time,
Yeah, but
and
I'm a big believer in the power of manifestation.
yeah,
So, I would say that I would rephrase it to say, I think that that's definitely going to happen, and we're going to put that into the world, and we're going to start with one person, and we're going to spread it throughout the ethos. But it's just forward thinking in that respect. I'd rather say it that way, and hope that it would go that way.
yeah. I think I break the news to my 10-year-old that shows interest, and I teach her about a long distance relationship with the canvas,
Hmm.
you know. Uh, and she said, "Well, so how are you going to end up painting if it's a long distance relationship?"
Yeah.
I said, "Well, because even in long distance relationship, you show up a few times
Hmm.
sometimes, yeah. So
Hmm.
that's what you do,
Hmm.
Especially if you want." The other night before I put her to sleep, I said she was asking me a brilliant question. I said, "You know what? Let's go to the studio. Let's go down to the studio." Went in. I opened the 3x3, and I said, "Okay, you remember how you were wondering about certain things and this and that?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Watch me."
Hmm.
And I did a 10-second thing,
Hmm.
and she was stunned.
Hmm.
And then we left the studio, and I took her to bed, and we started talking about it.
Yeah. So she was very inspired.
Yeah, yeah. She was beyond that. She
Yeah.
recognized that the moment was powerful,
Hmm.
and she was amazed that it was so simple.
Hmm.
Now I said, but so she said, so where is the problem? What's the
Hmm.
problem? She's telling me.
Yeah. She's.
So okay, so you're telling me that it's not so rosy, so easy. So where's the problem? Where's the obstacle? What's going on? I told her. So now you have to wait because it's wet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not because it's wet. It's because it's so wet, and it's so wet because there's so much paint there,
Mm-hmm.
and you just have to find a way. Um, um, Not to be tempted to prematurely reapproach it.
Mm. You have to
Just
have
let it be,
patience. Yes.
but you have to forget about it
Mm-hmm.
because with long distance, they say obviously that distance will will eventually kick in
Mm-hmm.
the implications of it. I mean,
I.
so it's all about being able to know. You don't know when you don't have to know what the right time to leave. You do it, an instant thing, and you're out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back is the tricky part.
Yes.
But you have to come back and you have to keep on doing it. And suddenly it looks like those gaps in between are too long and it's challenging in themselves. But then you need to teach them how to fill the void. So that means while you're waiting between one encounter to the other, you're creating a second world.
Mm-hmm.
And that second world will be in the same fashion, state of mind.
Yes.
No matter what layers, it's the same technique that you implement.
Do you leave them out for yourself to see in between? Because I do that. I'll either start a painting from start to finish in, a day, 10 hours, let's say, or I'll start something and stop, and I can leave it for sometimes 6 months. But I have almost where I see it every day, unfinished. And it registers that it's unfinished. I know I want to finish it, but I know it's not time to go quite back to it yet. And then one day, there it is. And then and it's done done that day. So it's so weird. I'll have some paintings that, how long did it take you? 2 years. How many hours? 12, and that's just an interesting part of the process. And I'll stare at it unfinished, and it's unnerving because I know that that's not how it should be. And I'm not having it on display for people to think that's how it should be. But I just have to, it always sort of has to be in my field of vision.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm more like, because I create more than one piece at the same time at any given time. There's always ongoing thing. I keep the canvas guessing, when I'm going to suddenly show up and so they're not complacent. The canvas is not
You play
complacent.
hard to get with them.
Yeah, usually they were the surface was challenging me early on in the early stages of the process. Now we established a mutual respect and but if you keep it for too long, for me it will be almost like stale, like like at some point you're losing
interest in it.
Yeah, and that energy is kind of, because you change so much so fast, you're too refreshed.
Well, the good thing is you can always paint it white and start again.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's true.
There's a lot of them, I know, and a lot of artists who've done that.
Absolutely. I hate doing that, but I've done it in the past. Yeah,
Sometimes you just got to go back to white.
Absolutely. We're doing it. Why? Because we can do it.
Yep.
And so and I did. I want to tell my child, nothing that you create is holier than thou. You can do whatever you want because you're the artist. You do this. You decide. Yes, no, to become, not to become, to stop, to paint, to over, to renew. Yeah, everything. You yourself and you. So don't worry about it. So in that sense, so just to inform you that we're almost 58 minutes. And
oh wow!
So let's just say that we're going to be here tomorrow, as much as we were here yesterday, and as much as we're here this morning, Wednesday morning, February 5th, year 2025, here with the Hello Show. And Antoinette is our guest. So I hope that we can meet on a regular basis. This is just an introduction 1 hour.
I would love to come back. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
for having
wasn't
me.
it nice? It was very nice.
This is great.
Yeah. So
my first podcast.
And maybe next time we can isolate or highlight a certain fraction of this discussion, and each one of them is worth an hour.
Sure.
And I want to thank you on behalf of myself and LTV that you're an incredible addition to the demeanor and the state of mind here at the station, and really, really doing a great job, and I bless you for that, and I thank you for that.
Well, I thank you also. And my first introduction to LTV was your art curation. So it's where it all started. So I'm glad to be back and a part of it. Thank you.
Yeah, we proved that we can give answers to very demanding, challenging realities here.
Yes.
And we made things happen instantly.
Yeah.
I mean, even with my show now, My Life, Your Life, this is something I created 18 years ago. And some encouragement here and then. Suddenly I said 48 pieces on the wall.
Let's do it.
I love it. So I feel very fortunate.
Me too.
And now we're coming up with a black and white exhibition by 5 artists that are creating, especially for the show that's upcoming in 4 weeks. And it's going to be titled Let Alone.
Okay.
Again, thank you to my guest, Antoinette. Thank you so much. And we'll see you sooner than later. And I love you, and God bless.
You too.